fairies, Sasquatch, the elemental kingdom and the elemental worlds. How do they dovetail? How do they interact and coexist with the world of the physical world of humans? And what is their message to humanity? We're going to talk about that and more on the show with the gorgeous Kristin, Miss Mash, who's not looking because she's looking down. Hi, Kristin. Stay tuned. Where's my elevate thing? Here we go. Coming up. Welcome to Elevate, the awareness shift, waking the quantum self. I'm KAren Swain, your host, and you're listening on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio all over the world. Yep. And we're talking fairies, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I said to the Inner Sanctum group, Kristin's going to channel Sasquatch today. She's like, oh, thanks.
No pressure.
No pressure.
That's not my gig, darling.
Well, I've got you in the hot seat.
Yes, you do.
You can connect. So years ago, when I was teaching some of the group how to connect to their spirit guides, Kristin connected. Do you want to share the story rather than me tell it?
Yeah. Well, I'd be happy to. And by the way, you're gorgeous too. It's the gorgeous KAren. I get to play with you every couple of weeks or so. So years ago when, in fact, I was looking at my notes from that this morning. I've been clearing some things out and I came across the actual notes I took from that session. And KAren has this way of teaching us and training us to just go, don't overthink it. I don't have to do this long, deep meditation to just connect. And so here we were doing this connection, and it actually was for our galactic guides. Let's connect to your galactic guides. And today. And so I sat and I reached out, and it was this beautiful, wise, old looking female Sasquatch that just filled my inner, third eye view. And I think I kind of chuckled at myself, and KAren's like, Kristin, what are you getting? What are you getting? Push, push, push.
Love the Aussie accent.
And well, then you'll have to do an American accent later. But you were pushing me. And so I just started telling you what I saw, and I'm so grateful for it. But it was challenging at the time. But I thought, well, I'm just connecting with this because I love Sasquatch so much. I've been a believer for a few years. And at that time, I was really loving the Sasquatch and just learning a lot about them more being of the fairy realm or of the fae, like we're talking about today. And so I thought I was just fooling myself, and it's because what I wanted. And then you said, ask some questions, ask her a name, and I got a name, and it was Ansha. And then you said, ask her why she's here, what she's here to teach you. And I got this barrage in my inner vision of so sometimes when I see things, and this is what she showed me, it was like as though somebody was drawing on a wall, with chalk or paint. So it kind of looked like cave drawings in a way, but they were very detailed, and it was animated, and it was the world, and it was creating, and then it was being created, and then humans on it. And it went from humans living in huts really quickly to humans driving cars, and all down in the background of this world with these images were codes and numbers and letters, but things that I couldn't understand. And I was like, I don't understand it. I don't understand what she's telling me. And you said, ask her to slow it down, which I've learned is such a great way when I'm communicating with guides and things from the other realms, slow it down so I can pick up on what you're saying. And she slowed it down, but it just created, and it started this beautiful connection that I've had with her ever since. And so sometimes when I'm deep in forests doing meditations, or I was in a deep meditation with another group at Mount Shasta, and they were taking us in the meditation into Telos, which are the beings that live within Mount Shasta, to all the, I think, are they Pleiadians? I don't remember now all of a sudden. But into the city that they live in, Pleiadians.
They're saying there's a group of them that they said Lyrans, Pleiadians.
Yes.
There's different ones.
But she was my guide to make it so I could walk through there spiritually. So, and then one last thing I'll add is sometimes I'll be a part of meditations where just some of us as groups of friends are like, oh, this terrible thing is happening on this planet. Let's get together and send out these energies. And she's usually one that shows up. And so I've started to utilize her and say, this energy of the group or the energy I'm producing, please take it to, you guys know what to do with it, and send it out to the world. And I'll get these beautiful images of them, a bunch of Sasquatch beings coming together almost angelically.
Yeah.
And doing their work all over the world. So
I'm just getting all this information because, as I was saying to Kristin before, the elemental world and Sasquatch are not really my expertise. And then my guides were not berating me. They were just being very matter of fact with me, like 2 minutes before we went live. And they said, why are you doubting this, Karen? Telepathy is telepathy. Just connect and ask. You know, you don't have to be an expert at anything. It's like you've got access to information, like the internet. You've got access to information. Just, look it up, ask. You don't need to be an expert. I'm like, oh yeah, right. But what is coming through, and actually it came through before we started, when I was quizzing again, like, I don't know too much about Sasquatch. Some information came through, and I asked the question, who are they? And I was thinking about how I thought about Sasquatch over my life. I've never not believed in them. Like, I remember hearing Joe Rogan, who talks about all sorts of things on his podcast, saying, like, oh, and then you're going to start believing, about Bigfoot and making it as if you do believe in it, now you're really crazy. And I'm like, why would you think that believing in Bigfoot would be more crazy than believing in ETs? Because he talks about ETs and galactic stuff all the time.
Good point.
And I've never not believed in them. Not that I thought about them too much when I was younger, but I always believed that they were here. I think that Patterson Gimlin footage came out when I was a kid or a teenager. And when it came out, I thought, oh yeah, that's true. I never doubted that it was true. I didn't think about them too much. But then I heard about 20 odd years ago, someone asking Abraham Hicks. It made me think about them more. A question, is Sasquatch or Bigfoot true? Can you talk about them? And they said, this is not a topic we normally talk about. But they said, yes, they are beings that have elected to have an earth experience that is about being wild and free. And those two words stuck with me, wild and free. Like, if you want to come in as like in between being an animal and a human, like, you would choose a Sasquatch experience because you're both. You're like human and animal. You're wild and free. And that made me start thinking about them more and asking more questions. Ooh, tell me more about that. And what I was getting to this morning was, when we think about these beings, we put them into one basket most of the time. Like, Sasquatch do this and Sasquatch do that, and they're violent and they're not violent, and they're telepathic and they're not telepathic, as if we could depict them with our judgment and criticize them, like put them in one box.
Right.
They were saying, just like humans, you can't depict a human by saying humans are like this or that, because they're so diverse and different. And so are the Sasquatch people. And I went, oh, of course. They said some are more violent than others. They're more protective and they can get violent. And some are completely loving. And there are different levels of consciousness within the Sasquatch people, just like humans. And I'm like, of course there is. That's really interesting. And as you were talking, the word about your experience with, what was her name? Tell me her name again. Ansha. Beautiful. I was getting, and again this morning I got galactic Sasquatch, and there are, just like we see praying mantises that are animals, and then people talk about these highly evolved praying mantis beings that are ET races. So they've got a similar body, but they've evolved into another experience, but still wearing a similar body. So galactic Sasquatch is the same. And galactic Sasquatch is doesn't have the same intention as the Sasquatch here living in the mountains and the woods that are having the experience of being wild and free. So there are these evolved Sasquatch, which the word that came was galactic Sasquatch, that are more highly advanced, more advanced consciously, and they're not electing to have a wild and free experience, but they're wearing a sub. I'm thinking of, what was the character in Star Wars?
Wookiee.
Wookiee. I'm thinking
Chewbacca.
of Wookiee.
Yeah.
Chewbacca. That's it. Yeah. I'm thinking of Chewbacca. And they're the ones that you connected to, the galactic Sasquatch, that are more like guides, like evolved intelligent beings.
And I want to, Chewy, Elsa Dillon says, Chewy, I want to speak to that a little bit, in that there are Sasquatch that do live on our planet, and they have these abilities to be interdimensional. So that's why people, people will laugh at me when I say this, but I don't really care about this. But that's why you can't get good footage of them, or that it's fuzzy, is because they can, go between portals often.
Right.
But they do live on our planet in clans, tribes, familial structures. And then there are those rogue ones or odd ones that maybe are like a hybrid, or that are choose to be that more violent. Because my experience with Sasquatch energy, and not just my guide, but what I know around me and what I've experienced, is that they're kind, loving, fun. They usually bring, like, in a meditation, sometimes somebody's like, oh my gosh, there's like this childlike energy, and my friends will go, oh, Kristin's here, she's brought the Sasquatch energy, like, that's playful and fun, like the dolphins, right? Like dolphins are very playful. And but there are the scarier ones. And so I've had to try and reason, like, where does that fit in? But there are just those few that are more in that realm.
Well, as you're talking about the scarier ones, the word that keeps coming is protective, more protective of their experience. So they're not interested in interacting with humans at all, and they're very protective of that intention. And if humans do encroach their territory, they will be violent, because they're very protective of that intention not to interact. And some humans can be very nosy and want to, like, get in there. But we have to acknowledge all the luscious ladies online. How do you like that? Luscious ladies. We've got Elsa, and Shirley, Mish, Jules, and who else is online? What does Elsa say here? Bunyip, Yowie, too many, agree like us, many different ones. Yeah, Bunyip, the Bunyip, that's the name of what's the Bunyip? That's the name of a creature down under. Yeah, we call them the Yowie down here. I have to say, I don't use the word Yowie too much. I like the word Sasquatch better than Yowie, but Yowie is the way the Australians call Bigfoot.
Well, I have a great story that kind of illustrates a little bit of the families and stuff. So I've studied them long enough, and I have this whole Sasquatch community. In fact, beautiful Sue Walker, that you had on your show a couple weeks ago, who does a lot of the work with the Ponte, also does a lot of work with the Sasquatch. And I actually met her at this Sasquatch conference kind of gathering of people that are more this psychic Sasquatch. And if somebody wants to know more about them, and see Sue and Otter, a few years ago, Sasquatch Speaks. It's a 3-part documentary that's on YouTube, and it's kind of out there, but it's really fun. And some of my friends are on it. Anyway, so I know a bit about them living in clans and families from my studies. And I went out on a date with this guy a couple years ago, and we went out a couple times. And I went to his apartment, and he's showing me around, and his apartment had all these little, like, plaques and bumper stickers and little statuettes and things that were like, Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and, just little things around his house. And I said, hey, so what's with all the, like, Bigfoot stuff you have in your house? And he's like, my kids, give it to me, because they think it's funny. And I'm like, oh, well, do you believe in Sasquatch? And he's like, nah, he kind of evaded the question. And I pushed a little bit and I said, so you don't believe, or something had to have happened if people are giving you stuff.
Yeah.
And he just kind of quieted up again. And I said, look, I mean, this guy I'd gone out on 2 dates with. There was not a lot, And I was like, so I just said, why not go for it? So I just said, look, I said, you may think I'm crazy. I don't care. But what I know about Sasquatch is that they're interdimensional, but they live in families. They live in clans. They have children. And, they have elders and all this stuff. And I was watching his face, like his eyes get big and his jaw drop. And he goes, how did you know that? And I'm like, wait a minute, how do you know that? And so I got him to tell me this story. And he had gone camping in the Uinta Mountains. Now, where I live in Utah, I'm really close to the Rocky Mountains, which is a range of mountains that runs down this part of the west of the United States. And the Uinta Mountains are pretty remote, high up, like 9,000 feet in some parts, can get up higher. But he went hiking with a friend, backpacking in with a friend in the Uinta Mountains, and they got to this clearing, like a meadow, and there was a river. They set up their tent, and his friend crashed out and said, I'm going to take a nap. And he's like, okay, I'm going to just explore. And he went to the river, and he told me this story about how sitting at the river, he felt like he was kind of being watched, and he looked up. And just across the river, not a wide river, there was a Sasquatch, and he'd never had experience like this before. And it was tall, brown hair, and they locked eyes. And he said he had these deep brown eyes, and they just locked eyes for like 10 minutes. Ooh. And he said during this 10 minutes, he himself felt like, how am I not afraid? I mean, I didn't know these were real. Wow, he's really cool. Oh, he's beautiful. Oh, like he was giving me all these, lovely descriptions. And they just stood there for like 10 minutes. And then the guy goes, and then it kind of got like, when you're staring too long and it gets uncomfortable. So I wanted to break away. And so I don't remember if he said it in his head or said it out loud, but like, hey, it was really nice meeting you, but I'm going to go now, kind of a thing. So he went back. His friend was still asleep. They proceeded to go about their camping experience. And that night, he said in his tent, he was awoken by like shaking on the tent. And he could tell that there were things around the tent. And it had, the way he described it, it had an opening in the top. So you could look up at the stars while sleeping in the tent. And he said that there were Sasquatch all around, and like little children type ones. And they were like kind of playing on the tent, and tall ones that were looking in. And then this is why I want to tell you this story too. There was a really tall one. He said, I don't know how tall, but he was standing above, looking straight down, and he had piercing red eyes. And he was looking right at me. And he kept saying to me, this is what the guy said, that what he got from this guy is, I'm watching you. I'm here to take care of my family. I got my eyes on you. Don't you mess around.
Wow.
So there was this big, huge. So when you said protective one, I was like, yeah, that's what this guy was talking about. And then he said there were like orbs in his tent. And after a while, he kind of got freaked out. And he's like, I don't, can you guys all go away? Just leave me alone. I need to get some sleep. And you're freaking me out. And he said they kind of all backed away. And he said a couple weeks later, in his own home, not in the mountains, he just lives here in the valley. And he started getting orbs in his apartment, not knowing what they were, but orbs. And then I asked him if he'd ever gone back up. And he said he's gone back up to that place a couple times. And only when he's alone, that one Sasquatch shows up, that first one. So,
wow.
But then, we went out on another date, and then he ghosted me, probably because I was too weird. I don't know. But
you're too weird.
I told him, I said, listen, buddy, I said, that story is huge. Even in the Sasquatch community that I sort of have the hang around in, people would love to hear your story. So I sent him a link to that conference one time and said, I'll never bug you again. And he must not have blocked me because he said, thank you. So that was a good couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
But it really illustrates their whole dynamic, their family clan. And they all didn't
Absolutely.
look, he said they didn't look all alike. They looked different.
You know, as you're talking, I'm getting so much information about them. When you were talking about the family, I was getting that, you know, the younger ones are really, really curious about humans. And the older ones don't want to squash their curiosity because they too want to reconnect with humans. But like history, they have a lot of history of violence from us towards them. And they have, like, because they live so much longer than us. And they also have memory of even before they bring through the memory of their ancestors. They're very connected, because they use telepathy as part of their communication. Very connected to history. Oh, this is something they shared with me earlier this morning too. God, I forget how much information I get because it's just me, you know, having a shower and doing my hair and doing all that stuff you do and making breakfast, and they're like yakking in my head, showing me stuff because I think, what are we going to talk about today? I say when I wake up in the morning, I don't know too much about this subject, and they're off and going. They said to me, so they have a lot of memory of mostly white men. I'm seeing sort of cowboy-looking type white men intentionally going out to kill one, and like trophy hunters, like that. Humans still do that. It upsets me so much when I see people standing over beautiful lions and stuff, holding their gun and looking very proud that they've killed this. Oh my God. Anyway,
it's heartbreaking.
They shared with me this morning that they hadn't always been scared of man, that in our history, ancient history, they were very connected to the Indigenous, the First Nations population, and they had relationships with the First Nation population. This would be before white man settled in Australia and the United States. And I don't know how, like hundreds, even over 1,000 odd years ago, a couple of thousand years ago. And they said that the Indians called them the mountain men or the wild men, was the equivalent in their language. They called them, they didn't use words like Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yowie that we use. They called them the mountain men was the first thing. But obviously that would be the English translation from their native language, or the forest men, the mountain men, or the wild men. And interestingly enough, what they were showing me, you know, when white man settled both in Australia and the United States, we called the Indians the wild men, you know, they were sort of primitive wild men. And yet they called the Sasquatch the sort of primitive wild men, but they had a relationship with them where they would work together and they would gift each other stuff, and like neighbors, they so we came along with our violence, and the Sasquatch completely retreated. I don't want anything to do with humans. And they used their abilities to be interdimensional, to hide. Mind you, there's a lot of sightings of them all over the place, and there's a lot of photography that's real. So they haven't done too good of a job of hiding. But and then the Indigenous races, the First Nation, lost their ability to communicate with them and lost their relationship with them also. I mean, there's a handful of people, just like there's a handful of people on Earth that still retain that ability to communicate with them telepathically. Like we can.
Yeah. A lot of people in that community that I was speaking of do have a lot of relationships and with ones that walk this planet right now, you know, and they're the caretakers. Often a lot of the messages that this group gets, like there's the Sasquatch message of humanity. There's books and stuff that I have, but they talk about, they refer to us as little brother and little sister because they are caretakers for us. They also helped create the earth. That's what a lot is put out there too. So they're the caretakers, and they do take care of, you know, the planets. There's stories of when Mount St. Helens, which is a volcano in the area of Washington State, up in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, that when Mount St. Helens exploded in the 70s, maybe it was 1980, and that they saw Sasquatch running with animals out of the burning, of the lava flow. So I love stories. I love stories like that because why not, right? So, and I want to say too that there was a Native American man that I was close with a few years back, and he said they referred to them as, no, I don't still, well, I still have his number, but
Shirley says still got his number.
I can't, sitting here right now, I can't even remember his name. I mean, it was so long ago. It was a couple of years ago. But the Native American man said that he's Navajo, and he said they referred to him, the name that they had for them translated to one who casts shadows in the forest because they're so tall.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elsa's saying here, they too, like us, have to let go of old ways, old beliefs of us. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how we have been in the past to allow the new ways. Yeah, absolutely. They do. And that's a part of their lesson too. Like I said, when Kristin was sharing that story, I saw the enthusiasm about them around the tent, the enthusiasm of the little ones, so curious about who humans are, and then the older ones not wanting to squash that enthusiasm, but still airing that caution. Like if you get too friendly and close to them, you could get hurt. They could kill you.
Yeah.
And so holding on to those old stories, and they've got work to do around that. I've had Talis Helliwell on the show many times, who is very connected to the elemental kingdom, and many other people, but I can't remember. Penny Kelly as well. If it was Tanis or Penny, saying that, like the Sasquatch years ago, hundreds, thousands of years ago, the elemental kingdom was completely known and seen by us humans. Like we interacted with that world, with that kingdom, and then we became too violent and they retreated from this dimension. They maintained a vibration which kept them in the fourth dimension, and we descended into third dimensional consciousness, which meant that no longer could we perceive them through our five senses.
Right.
But they can move between dimensions. They can change their frequency so they can appear physical and real, and then change their frequency so that they are invisible to our eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to say there's a little bit of hope, like the messages that come from them now, that a lot of people that communicate with them, that they share is, humanity, we are raising the vibration of the planet. Right. And the more it raises, the more that they're able to come out. And that's why there's so much more contact with them now. And and they're like, they're so ready to teach us how to live more with the planet.
Absolutely.
So coming from that heart space, if somebody wants to communicate with them, you can, just like the Ponti, so.
Absolutely. And when I was chatting to them this morning before we went live, I was asking, what is their message? And they told me something really interesting. They said that especially the elemental, like the fairies, I see them with my physical eyes, but I see them as specks of light. Like I don't see little bodies. And I've asked them, like, do you have bodies? And they said, well, just like when you're on the astral plane and you're in a more subtle energy, you create your body through thought instantly. You actually create your body through thought in the physical too, but you don't know it because it's such a slow, dense vibration. It's created through DNA, but there's thought that goes into that. And then you maintain those thoughts and beliefs. It's all quite complicated, but we're creating our reality through what we believe and think, even our physical body. And so they said, but when you see us as points of light, you see who we really are, but then we can create a body that people have depicted in drawings. And where was I going with this? I said, so how do you interact and how do you help humanity at this time? And they said, they mentioned Sue Walker. They said, just like Sue has put out the telepathy, what does she call it? That thing on her website where you can learn telepathy.
I can't remember.
I can't remember the name of it, but
somebody on the chat will remember, I'm sure.
Yeah, Shirley, you'll know. And they said that if you go out into nature and connect and commune with us, we can teach you and heighten your telepathic skills. And I'm like, oh, cool. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
But they said most people don't take the time to do that. They do it through human interaction, but actually interacting with the elemental world, the natural world, will heighten your telepathic skills. Like just go out and talk to a tree. When Judith was on the show this week, she was talking about, she was doing mini aura readings. Yeah, you had one. And she was talking about the spikes she sees in our aura from the electromagnetic radiation of phones and things. computers. And I said, does going in the ocean help? And she said, well, if you go where no one else is around. And I'm like, dang it, because I go in the ocean, I'm surrounded by people. But she said, if you go out into nature alone, and so I asked about that, like, why? Because we're so connected to each other. When we're around human people, we're more interacting with their auras than we are with the aura or the energy of the earth. But if you go out into nature where you are alone, and they've showed me that you don't have to trek out into the wild, you can just go to a big park where people aren't in your immediate vicinity and connect with the energy or the aura or the consciousness of earth. That and meditation will heighten and raise and advance your telepathic and psychic skills. And I'm like, oh, cool. And they said, ask the fairies to help. Like, ask the fairies to help. I'm like, so cool. So cool.
Yeah.
What time is it? I have to do a station ID break. What are the luscious ladies online
You do
saying?
your ID break and I'll pop a couple of them in. How about that?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, so we're on the, you're listening to KAren Swain and Kristin Mishmash on Elevate on the United Public Radio Network. I didn't mean to do that. Where are we? Oh, here we go. I'm just trying to bring up an image on, the United Public Radio Network and the Paranormal Radio Network, UFO and Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio coming out of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast, but also streaming on platforms around the world. When I had Joe on the show, he was telling me that we hit about 120 countries. And I said we're streaming on 8 platforms on StreamYard, he said, but we're on so many more platforms. He didn't elaborate, but apparently this message is getting out there. And if you are listening on radio, or if you're listening to this after the live, like, put a hi in the comment, or go to my website and KarenSwain.com and let me know you're listening. Apparently, hundreds of thousands of people are listening on syndicated radio, but I never hear from you guys that you're listening.
Well, I'd love for people that are listening to send in questions for you to address as well.
Yeah. Well, I've put that out to my email list too. I've sent out several emails. I said, if you've got any questions, I haven't had any questions in. So people aren't as curious as me. When I was going through my spiritual awakening, I had a million questions about a million things that I would have loved to have asked people like us that can tap in.
Yeah.
But, not too many questions. And I have to say, the group here already tapped in. Heidi, hello, darling one. What are you saying here? My alarm just went off. Oh, for the show. All right. And Diane, ask the fairies to help. Yes, ask the fairies to help. And he's Leslie.
I got to meet Diane. She was on a road trip in her motorhome with her hubby. Do you remember that, when she was traveling?
Yeah, she was traveling around.
Yeah,
with her
and we got to meet, and we were talking. I went to visit her in the motorhome park where she was, and she was like, "There's something coming up behind you," and I can't remember. You'll have to pop it in the chat. But she could see or feel or like saw or sense like a child Sasquatch when we were talking that came up behind me and was like very playful. And so I hopefully she remembers that. It was a year or two ago that she was coming through Utah.
Well, I wanted to say to you, when you were talking about when you were reliving when we were meeting our galactic guides, and how easy it was for you, what I was experiencing from you was that you were getting information. I experienced this from everybody. And you were saying that when I teach people, I just say, go for it. You don't need to sit for hours to meditate, to connect. Just what are you getting? Is so many people hold back what they're getting because they doubt themselves. Like, I'm just making that up. That can't be real. I can't really do. I mean, me, who's been doing it forever, I'm still doubting myself. Like when Charlie Kirk came in, like, he was thunderous. He was so huge. And I'm like, I'm not talking to Charlie Kirk. I'm just making this up because he's just been assassinated. And then my guides, it wasn't him, but my guide said to me, why are you doubting myself? And then again, before we went live, I'm like, I don't know much about, the fairies, or it's not my gig. And then my guide said, why are you doubting yourself? So they you call me out as much as I call other people out. Like, why doubt yourself? What's Diane saying here? Yeah, I saw shimmering waves behind Kristin, and a couple of times I think I felt shivers too. Ooh, that's so cool.
Well, and I've seen them, and I've seen them at one of those conferences where we were all like I was like, hey, I haven't seen you since last year. And we were hugging, and I looked around and I could see these really tall beings walking up and doing the same things, like greeting each other. But how I saw them were in these wavy, energetic outlines, and I could see everything they were doing, but it was this wobbly, wavy thing. So
Yeah.
that's funny that Diane said that. But go ahead. I keep stopping you.
Seeing interdimensionally. Well, Gloria's online, remember? And when we were in the inner sanctum, and she had that fairy buzzing around her head, and she says, "Hi, ladies, remember Mary the fairy?" AI did a great job of enhancing those photos. And I kept, when she was talking online in the inner sanctum, I kept saying, there's something flashing around your head. And I took a couple of screenshots, and there was this sort of white fairy looking light energy. I mean, it didn't really have a physical human body, but it did look very fairy like. And she didn't have some dragonfly or anything. There was nothing physical in the room, but the camera picked up this white thing that used to buzz around her head. Yeah, absolutely remember that. Yeah, and she, I think you tuned into it, didn't you, Gloria? And Mary the fairy gave you a name.
Oh, I was the one that saw it. That's what Wayshower said. That's what's her beautiful
Wayshower is Gloria.
Gloria, yes. That's her. Oh, this was a while ago, Gloria.
Yeah.
I do remember, I think. Yeah, I kept seeing like an orb or something shoot around.
Yeah.
What, okay, I have a question. Q&A time. Why does it show up on cameras, and it showed up on the camera, and we can't see it with our eyes? Like, how do cameras pick it up? Because I get orbs all the time.
Well, they're saying that the digital technology is faster than the old form technology, and it just has a faster shutter speed. Okay, so the reason, they're giving me this analogy. The reason that we can't see it is up through our physical eyes is because of the speed that it vibrates at. And the analogy that they're showing me is that when you look at a plane that has a propeller on the front and the propeller goes, you can't see the propeller. It's physically there, but it's going so fast that it's invisible. So the analogy is that the frequency of the beings that are physical, their frequency is so fast that we can't see them through our physical eyes, but the camera speed, whatever the technology is in digital cameras, because it's happened more in digital than it did in the old, whatever that old form was called, is a faster speed, and it is able to pick it up more than the physical eyes. Okay, they're saying that we can change that with our physical body by raising our frequency, which changes the cones and the rods in our eyes. Ooh, they're giving me all this information. So when Jamie Butler came on the show years ago, who's that amazing psychic who sees spirit as clearly as seeing humans, and I said to my guys, oh, I'd so like that, to have that ability. And they said, no, you wouldn't, Karen. It'd be too confusing. Imagine living your life like that, not knowing who's a spirit and who's human. And I said, oh, yeah. But I've sort of said to them, oh, I want to see more with my physical eyes, not just my third eye. And they're sharing that you just raise your vibration, meaning you don't indulge. I haven't been very good at this lately. I have been indulging in negative thinking, which I've been laughing at myself for different reasons. When you stop hating on people, criticizing people, hating on yourself, criticizing, hate, when you raise your frequency, the simple apparatus of raising your frequency is speeding it up. And the more speed up your frequency becomes, the more you can connect with higher consciousness or different dimensions, because literally third dimension is just a slower frequency than fourth or fifth dimension. And it's all about speed and the level of frequency, which is really interesting.
So what Elsa said too. Look, lens have no doubt or fear.
Elsa. Yeah, that's true, Elsa. Absolutely. And
that's incredible.
Yes, so I was watching the hostages come home. As I said, I've got a lot of Jewish friends in my community, and they're all ecstatic about the hostages being returned, and the whole peace thing that's going on with Trump and all that stuff. I was watching the news, and then I'm sort of, will the peace hold? And I'm tuning into the hatred on both sides, and there's so much hatred. There's just generations of hatred. So it's just huge, the amount of hatred. I mean, Trump thinks that he can do his deal and sign things and it's going to create peace. It's a nice thought, but we have to address the hatred. So I asked them, how do we address the hatred? And they said to me, Karen, you know this, why are you asking this question? And I said, because I'm in my human mind and I'm seeing atrocities play out. And from the human perspective, I'm judging it as like, I don't like this. I don't want this to happen. This is wrong. This is bad. You know, like there was something where people were executed just like last night or something, and they're breaking the peace deal and all this sort of stuff. And they said, love the haters. Send your love to the haters. And I'm like, oh, how can you watch someone brutally execute somebody and then send love to them? You know, it's not easy. But you can do it. Like that's how you address the hatred. You can't change the hatred with hatred. Makes me cry.
Oh, yeah, because that's something we have to address right now in this in our global, you know, humanity sphere. Very much so.
Right. Like love the hate, like love them. Send love to the people that you hate. You know, like what is it, that Bible thing that says, you know, when you, what does it say? You know, the Jesus thing. You grew up in the Bible.
Yeah, girl, don't. I don't.
Slaps you off of the other cheek. How does it go?
You just turn the other cheek. Just
but when someone slaps you off of them the other cheek, like don't hate them for slapping you or whatever. Yeah, that was. But when I was asking him that this morning after watching the news, or might have been last night, they said, you know this. And I said, I do know this. And they said, you teach this. I said, I do teach this. And I said, but I'm human and I forget. And I go into the like, you know, this is disgusting. This is horrible. This is terrible. I go into the judgment. Yeah. So it's an ongoing lesson to love the hatred. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I say that because when you're in love, when you can look out into the world and see the atrocities and you can still stay in love and you could love what you're looking at and love the people that are doing things you don't disagree with, that's when you raise your frequency. That's when it gets faster, and that's when you have more access to different dimensions and more telepathy and stuff like that. It's really a thanks, Elsa. Bless your heart. Love to you both, Karen and Kristin. It's really the challenge that we come when we elect to come into a third dimension dense experience like planet Earth. And it's something that we're totally up for, because we could play in other dimensions and other planets where that level of hatred is not available. But then the challenge isn't as great to stay connected to source or connected to love inside that. So that's the challenge we give ourselves. And we often fail. I remember talking about the shift. What time is it? Talking about the shift and using the analogy, which is happening to me right now. So the shift is about disruption and chaos as we shift into a new way of being. And the analogy my guides gave me was, if you're renovating your house, you have to pull down the old in order to rebuild the new, right? And they gave me that analogy. Do you cry as the old building crumbles and get upset, or do you stay focused on how beautiful the new will be? And I said, what if you're just painting your house? Like I gave them a whole sorts of like they said, even if you paint your bedroom, you've got to pull your bedroom apart or put everything into the center. Like you can't sleep in your bedroom. There's chaos. And I'm like, right. Even a little bit of renovation, a lot of chaos, right? A little bit of renovation, a lot of chaos. So the townhouses that I'm in are being renovated at the moment. They had to replace the stop the water, what do you call that stuff, the waterproofing under the tiles. So they had to bring up all the tiles and put down new water. I'm thinking this is going to be a really simple exercise. Well, it's been weeks of jackhammering and chaos.
Oh.
And I'm not faring very well, because I fell over and cracked my head open on some bricks outside because they'd taken the level of the thing down, and I forgot, and and there's chaos happening around me, and I'm not faring very well. I'm sort of in chaos myself. And then I remembered the analogy my guides gave me about the shift. Can you stay connected on what will be and don't buy into the chaos? Right. And I'm like, I'm failing this exercise. I'm failing this exercise as I'm listening to 3 jackhammers going at once, and I'm trying to do a live radio show.
It was a beautiful show. You managed it, I think, as well as possible. So even though you had a concussion, I mean, what an analogy to put you through that.
I was saying to Kristin just before we came on that when I fell, because what happened is that when the doors that opened, there is a level outside area, and they've taken all that away. So there's now like about a 2-foot drop. and the wind came up, and this guy had put all his advertising all around the place, and he had it in a box, and the wind was blowing the box away. So I opened the doors and stepped out, forgetting there was this drop, and just fell to the ground, right? And there were bricks piled up on the corner, and cracked my head on the bricks. And as I hit, I remember thinking, that was so soft. That could have been a lot worse. I'm absolutely 100% sure that my stupidity for forgetting and being more cautious, but the fairies or the angels rescued me from it being a lot worse, worse. Yeah. So I thought to myself, I'm not meant to die right now, because I mean, that could have been like I'm heavy. I'm over 100 kilos. 100 kilos crashing down on jagged bricks could have like just taken me out. And it didn't. It just cut my head open. But yeah, that could have been a lot worse. So
thank
Garnet
you, angels, fairies.
Thank you, angels. And Garnet Schulholzer talks about he met the angel that stopped him from killing himself. There's an angel that has that specific job when we're stupid humans and we run into danger. And and Garnet said, he'd been very safe his whole life, and surely she had been bored, she wouldn't have been very employed. And she opened up this screen when he was over there in his astral body in another dimension, opened up this screen and showed him all the hundreds of times that she had intercepted him from killing himself while on Earth, because it wasn't his time. And he was shocked. He was like shocked. And I thought about that, like, how did that happen for me? And that was definitely one of those times. Sometimes we recognize it, but most of the time, like Garnet, we don't recognize the help, the unseen help that we're having from these dimensional beings like angels and fairies. And
I've started this practice, just trying to live, in the language of increase and be in more positivity in my day-to-day, that like when I can't find something and I just go, where is it? And the thought plops in my head, oh, it's over there under the newspaper or something. And I go, thank you, whoever just told me that. And I go and I find it. And it could just be myself, but I'm working to just live more in that, because, and Garnet's story about his guardian angel kind of laughing at him going, dude, you have no idea. I've been taking care of you a long time. That I feel like they're around a lot more than I realize, and that they really are here to help us all the time.
Yeah, they're not around a lot more. They're around us always. Like I said with Judith on the show this week, and Brandon's like, I think this telepathy is a telepathy psyop because I'm really into my privacy. I'm into my privacy, he said on the show. And I wanted to say to him, but I didn't. I let him talk. There is no privacy. And that's what I said to Judith. I repeated that, and because she's telepathic and, reads auras and stuff. And there just is no privacy. We are watched by a group of our soul family is watching us 24/7. Even when we're asleep, like when we're asleep, we're out of our body and we're hanging out with them. And then we're watching, like we could watch our sleeping body if we like. But, galactic beings can watch us. The elemental world can watch us. I mean, there is just no privacy. And when you do develop your telepathic abilities, you understand there's no privacy. So what does it mean if there's no privacy? Then you clean up your negative thinking, right? Why do you want privacy? Because you're embarrassed of your thoughts? Like, why do you want privacy? Apart from passcode numbers and, bank account numbers and all that sort of stuff. I'm hoping the day will come where everyone's telepathic, that there won't be any such thing as money and corruption, and we won't need passcode numbers, and we won't need to protect anything. We don't need to worry about our money or worry about people stealing from us, because that will be a thing of the past. And so full open communication will be wanted and asked for. And nobody will want privacy. Why do you want privacy anyway?
Well, okay, so I want to say something. Mish put this comment up, like, that's actually a bit creepy. I need to shower soon, LOL. So when I was first delving into way more spiritual topics, I followed Sandra Champlain a lot, and beautiful soul. In fact, I think you did an interview with her way back when, or you guys interviewed each other, didn't you?
She's one of the authors. I've had her on the show a few times, but she's one of the authors in Awakened by Death. I asked her to write it. write a
But
chapter. So she wrote a book called A Skeptic's Search for the Afterlife because she was really afraid of death, and she wanted to prove that there was no such thing as life after death.
I remember her talking about I don't think she wrote the book, but a book that's out there that's literally called "Do Angels Watch Me in the Shower?" I think is what it was called. And it's like, no, they have better things to do than like that, but they are here for us and they're with us all the time. And I have to not come from fear, because that fear of being watched all the time, and wanting my privacy does come a little bit from my religious upbringing. And I don't know if that comes for anybody else in the audience, but Jesus is watching me all the time. This is what I was taught, and kind of keeping tabs on me in my life. And, I was going to be judged on the other side by like tally marks. Maybe, I don't know what I was thinking, but so we're taught that God and Jesus are watching every move, and we're going to be judged. And so it took me a long time to shed that. Well, honestly,
they're watching, but they're not judging. I mean,
no.
If you fear someone watching you in the shower, why are you critical of your human form? Like I am. I'm critical of my human form. When I go swimming in the morning with my friend who's completely comfortable being naked amongst a million other naked women, I'm not someone who's comfortable being like, we're all in this tiny little shower room and we're all, having a shower and getting dressed after a swim, and we're all sitting there naked. Like, some people are really comfortable with that. I'm not, but that is judgment. And so what they're showing me is that if you don't want people watching you in the shower, that's the judgment that you are holding on your your human form. And I can attest to that. I have judgment on my human form. It's not as I would prefer it to be. And if I don't want to look at it, I don't think anybody else wants to look at it either. So I'm not comfortable walking around naked. But that's the judgment. And beings that are watching us have no judgment like that at all. Like none. Yeah. No judgment. Yeah. They think that any shape of the human form in its most degraded ability, in its most perfected form, is beautiful. Like, the human form is beautiful to them because they're not wearing a human form. And so I guess it would be like us looking at Sasquatch, right? It's a really different form to our form. And every shape of it, it's hairy and smelly, like it stinks. That's the thing about Sasquatch.
That's what people say. I haven't had that experience yet. I hope not to.
And yet, to someone who's in fascination, it's amazing and fascinating, and there's no judgment there. There's just fascination. Love.
So talk about the fairies before we go too.
Oh, the fairies, they are spirits. There are spirits around us 25. Yes, we are never alone. They're never alone. I live alone now, except for me and the cat. I mean, I have a flatmate who comes and goes, but mostly she's not here. So I'm alone most of the time. I have a lot of people staying too, but I'm never alone. Like, I'm never, ever alone. The only time I feel alone is when I'm engaging in negative thinking. Because when you're engaging in negative thinking, you pinch yourself off from that connection to your team, to your tribe, to your mob, to the angels, to the fairies, to the guides, to your soul, to your higher self, to your soul family. Like, when you're in your pity party, as I have been lately, I'm not doing very well with the demolition all around me and the noise and the chaos all around me. And they keep reminding me of, like, think of the end product. It's going to look so much better at the end product. Don't focus on the chaos that's creating, the end product. I'm like, oh, easier said than done. But anyway, being human. And then I think of the people in Gaza and Israel, who and the floods and the fires, their whole houses.
Everything is gone.
And watching the Palestinians return to Gaza, and they're just returning to rubble, and they're camping in camps outside their house, which is completely destroyed. Like, wow, that sort of chaos. So then I think they've got it a lot worse than me, listening to 3 jackhammers and having rubble everywhere. But see them all. Talk about the fairies. Well, I did a bit. Like I said, what do the fairies want to tell us? And they said they can help you with telepathy. Go out into nature and talk to them. They can help you with your physical body. They can help you heal your physical body. Again, find a place where you can feel the connection of them. It doesn't necessarily have to be in nature. I often connect to them in the shower. I often connect to them, funnily enough, when I take my clothes off. So I see them as running lights under my eyes. Like, I see them Tanis Halliwell talks about the fairy or the elemental of the physical body. The energies that maintain the physical body, the literal physical form. They're like these elemental energies. And I see them as like running. They look like fairy lights that you can buy. The tube that you buy that has the lights inside it? It looks like, but they're blinking, like running. It looks like running lights. Like I'll have my eyes open or shut, and I'll see these running lights under my eyes, and I know I'm connecting to that elemental.
I'll see them too, just out in my vision.
Yeah.
I know somebody who's been able to see them since they were a child, and you were talking about connecting in nature, but I just found out recently from her that they see them often in libraries and at bookstores. And so I was chatting with her today, like, so what is it about the libraries? And because I looked it up online, and they say, there's a lot of magical, mythical stories out there, and people are searching for them. So, us as humans, maybe we're kind of more open when we're there. But then when I was chatting with her today, she said that there actually are a lot of fairies and angels that guard the media and watch over the media too. Wow. But I don't know, if you're living in the city, go to a bookstore or the library, and maybe you'll be able to connect there too, if you can't quite get out there in your garden or to a park or out in the hills.
Well, because Kristin told me this last night, her morning, my night last night, because it's my morning, her night or afternoon now, on text, on Messenger, that she had this friend that sees them in the libraries and bookstores. And I'm like, wow, that's why I called this Fairies in the Library. I thought, oh, that's so cool. I'm going to use that, Fairies in the Library. And I asked my guides, my mob, why are they in the libraries? Like, why are they in the bookstores? And the first word that came up was information, guardians of information.
Same
information.
Thing.
Yeah.
Like media guardians.
Media guardians. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
so that was really fascinating. That was something I didn't know and think about. I don't see them I don't actually visit libraries or bookstores, I have to say, but because everything's online anymore. But yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah. Well, both my two youngest kids work at a bookstore, a big bookstore chain here, so I get to go all the time.
Cool.
And they get together and go to the library every couple of weeks too, just for fun. They just like to go. So
guardians of information. I wonder how they're guarding it when it's all online. It's all stored in clouds and things like that.
Well, okay. I tell my friends this all the time that are spiritual, like everything is energy, and it's energy and frequency. And what's more full of energy than our phones or our computers, and everything is actual energy as well. So when you're needing help, like ask the guides that deal in this form of energy to help you manage it,
Yeah, exactly.
My laptop doesn't shut down, during the podcast or whatever.
Well, that's exactly what I got when I asked that question sitting here. They said it's easier for them to connect with the energy of it stored in electronics because everything is energy. Yeah, it's like it's a different frequency than it being written on a written page. But they're just telling me, they're just showing me that everything is thought, that you perceive. People talk about this, the world is a world of illusion that you perceive as real because of the perceptual apparatus that you're viewing the world through. But everything, like you say, everything is energy. Everything is thought energy. It's all energy, but you're perceiving it as a physical, dense, and what we call real world, but it's all energy, and you're molding it with your thoughts. Yeah. Hey, Thirsty, beautiful Thirsty's just come on with his he does this. I love it.
Oh, cool.
I don't know, what's this person saying? Art ye witches. Lo, no offense. Art ye witches. Yes, we're witches.
What if I am? Maybe I'm a Sasquatch who's donned a skinwalker form to be here today.
Many years ago, I've got 1 minute left. Many years ago, when I was a naturopathic student, I was going to this chiropractor, an osteopath, and there's some moles on the top of just below my right shoulder, and they're in the form of a triangle, a little triangle. And he pointed out to me, he said, you have the mark. He was kind of joking, but not joking too. And I said, what's the mark? And he said, the mark of a white witch, the triangle. And I said, have I? Have I? Because I was like this 23-year-old young naturopathic student. It was so cool that my osteopath told me that. But I started thinking about that. But yeah, the witches of old are people that understand deliberate creation. They understand that thought creates, and that you can have it powerful enough that you can create what has called spells. We talked about that with Brandon. Spelling, like spelling and words. He said, your word is your wand, the spelling of a word, blah, blah, blah. And this is kind of why I get a bit picky about my name being pronounced as Karen and not Karen. It holds a different frequency, it holds a different vibration, spelt the same, has a different spell. But yeah, so the witches of old were people that understood the power of thinking. And then they were deemed evil or nasty and burnt at the stake. But the depiction of witches has always been evil, mostly throughout history, except for Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie in the 60s.
Oh, I love those shows.
Which was a boon, wasn't it? It was a boon for the witch communication. But yeah, the people that understand the power of who we are were called witches. So when you say, art ye witches, I'm going to say, yes, we are witches.
I will be if that's what you want to call me. I'm just sitting over here connecting to the elementals all the time.
The mark, love it. Yeah, also says the mark. The mark. Okay, we've run out of time. I was in the knots. Thank you, darling one, for being on the show. I mean, this is so much fun. This was so cool. And yeah, if you want to let us know what you thought about in the comments, and let us know your experiences with the angels and the fairies and the elemental worlds and Sasquatch. If you have any Sasquatch stories, we'd love to hear from you. Go to KarenSwain.com, connect or communicate or talk or whatever I've called the page where you can talk to me. And if you want to, oh God, I'm 2 minutes over. If you want us to do a show on some topic like that on Elevate. Big love to you all. Big love, Kristin. Bye for now.
Ciao. Bye, everybody. Thank you.